Speaking of the Flyers, though, I'm just going to read some tweets that Elliot Friedman had here. Just sort of getting some of the quotes from the Philadelphia Flyers press conference today. I had Chuck Fletcher, the GM, and that, and also Comcast Spectre chairman and CEO Dave Scott, who own the Flyers and have a very significant say, it looks like. First off, they say that he doesn't see, or as in directly, Scott says he doesn't see the Flyers as a 3, 4, 5-year rebuild. We're going to talk about Claude Giroux in a little better, but Dave Scott says basically, Chuck's my guy. We're going to give a blank check. We're going to get this right. I want it right now. And then Friedman makes a joke of every agent should start looking for his phone number. It seems to be the Flyers are not going to be afraid to make a big move. AKA, if there's a free agent that's going to make us bet him. I think the terms are being thrown around is retool on the fly. So what that sort of means to me is you've just given Chuck Fletcher the keys to the castle to do to the Flyers what he did to the Minnesota Wild. And if you want to know what that means, if you're a newer fan, in 2 years, not even, the Minnesota Wild are going to be bombarded with cap hell for the buyouts of Parise and Suter. That won't happen the same breath because contracts are different. But Chuck Fletcher is not someone I would say you can spend all my money to build this team.
I will say, to add on to your point, you bring up the Minnesota Wild, but let's also look at the work he did with the Philadelphia Flyers last offseason, specifically their defense, where, you looked at the team as a whole and you thought, where do they really need to improve was defense and finding Carter Hart a decent backup goalie to replace Brian Elliott. I think Martin Jones has been okay, but I think that back end has not looked good at all. And I think it's not making anyone's jobs easier that you gave up a first round pick, which was 14th overall, by the way, for Rasmus Ristolainen.
I agree with that, where when we mention retool, we always say that the ideal of that are the New York Rangers. But that's the thing. The Rangers were able to do that by signing guys, by not always giving up those top picks where, you add in someone like Artemi Panarin, you convince him to come, you get Jacob Trouba, you give up Ville Heinola, that draft pick for him. But at the same time, you're not looking at the type of capital that you're going to give. And what you've mentioned before with Chuck Fletcher, I'm looking back on all of his trades right now for Minnesota, and then it's the same philosophy that you see that he's doing with the Flyers. Like, for example, we talked about Rasmus Ristolainen, that first round pick. We have to remember that Chuck Fletcher is the guy that also traded a first round pick for the expiring contract of Martin Hanzal. Or he was the one that traded Brent Burns for Devin Setoguchi. I think that these are just type of things that they have to see what do you want in terms of management for that idea you want out of the team. Like, what is the philosophy you want there? And I don't know if Chuck Fletcher's that guy. Even when it comes to draft picks too, it's been pretty shaky with him as well. And he had enough years in Minnesota to figure it out. And I don't think it's going to be the same case with the Flyers.
The Rangers, first off, the Rangers weren't trying to retool. They were rebuilding. And they got lucky with the draft lottery twice. Now, what helps, and in favor of the Flyers making this choice, is neither Capo Caco or Alexis Lafreniere are major contributors as of right now. But in the future, Lafreniere, there's still lots of talent on that kid. Caco is at least a trading asset. But, they used the market they played in to bring in Artemi Panarin. In Philly, I think you convinced someone to come in. They were bold getting Adam Fox. Did any of us think Adam Fox would be this good? Sure, Mike would, because he claims to know everything about hockey. Love you, Mike. But a lot went right for the Rangers, and I don't think they expected that a few years into it, they'd have Chris Kreider leading the league in goals, considering he was so close to getting traded 2 years ago. I just don't quite understand what Philly are doing. Giroux, apparently the decision will be left to him. And apparently over the All-Star break, him and Pat Brisson, his agent, will be sitting down and looking at the circumstances. Everyone's talking a lot about Colorado. No, please, no. It's too good. That power play's nasty enough. Imagine you add Claude Giroux to PP2, then you can't do anything about it. That would be wicked good because he does need a cup.
He
Yeah.
He
does.
only got 6 games in the finals, and then Patrick Kane happened, and boo.
The Flyers are in this really weird situation where you look at them and you're like, okay, what are they exactly? Like you said, and I don't think, unless Daniel, you have the answer, I'm not entirely sure what this team is, and I don't know what this team is moving forward. Like, they have good pieces there. Like, I think Carter Hart is going to be an extremely good goalie if he's already that, and we've seen it before. What on earth is Ivan Provorov? As soon as Matt Niskanen left, he kind of took a step back, like we said last episode. And up front, Travis Konechny's 24, Oscar Lindbaum's 25. Like, the guys who, there's not a plethora of extremely young guys there yet. And if they don't want to rebuild, I don't know how many, like, what are they planning to do here? Like, they just signed Sean Couturier for another 8 years, which was the right move in my eyes. But what are you going to surround him with?
I think for me, the Flyers, I never viewed them as a contender, but I think that they've already been given the 2 to 3 years to try to run with this core and see if they could, try to make like a deep run. And I don't think it's there anymore. That there's really no reason for me to think that you bring guys back. I think that you make a statement trade like a Claude Giroux type of one right now to establish that it's going to be a different leadership group, and you just try to figure out what you can do with those really, really big contracts, because the Flyers are notorious, even no matter who the GM was, for having these types of contracts. But if they want to do a real full scale retool here and there, like, they have to know that you can't have these huge building blocks everywhere.
So Buffalo have a game in hand. If Buffalo win that game in hand, the Flyers are down to 28th. That'd be 5th overall. You get a good player in the draft or a good trading asset. Fair enough. You get something for Ristolainen. You could get something pretty good for Claude Giroux. I'm sure there'd be a taker on Jamie Van Riemsdyk, especially if you retain a bit. I don't think it would be a problem trying to trade him. Obviously, like we've talked about, like the big question obviously is, you move Rasmus Ristolainen, you got some guys there. I'm not sure, maybe even Keith Yandel could get you something. Ivan Provorov's the big question for me. What do you decide to do there? Because of all the other defensemen there, Ellis is going to stay because obviously you can't trade him, and obviously you want to hold on to some guys. And I think they confirmed he's basically out for the year. But Provorov is the big question for me. What do you do with him? Because he hasn't been the Provorov we remember from 3-4 years ago.
He has not been. And I'd be very curious to know what has changed with Ivan Provorov. Like, I think it's easy to say, well, it was Matt Niskanen, but like, you're telling me no one else is Matt Niskanen, and you weren't able to go out and get Matt Niskanen. Like, I wonder, because he clearly hasn't had much time next to Ryan Ellis. And I just wonder if you give him proper time next to Ryan Ellis to see what happens. Like, I'd just be curious to see.
Yeah, because when I think of Ivan Provorov, like when he was drafted, he was considered a solid two-way guy. Like, I'm not saying he's so far like a Tony DeAngelo type of player where he becomes a defensive liability. Well, that's what he was supposed to be labeled as. But as of right now, just it's weird to me that you take away a Matt Niskanen factor like that, and suddenly this guy collapses. Like I'm thinking of Erik Karlsson. Mark Mathot got selected in the Vegas in the expansion draft. It didn't completely destroy Erik Karlsson.
No.
Well, it didn't help that around the same time his ankle just died.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help at all. I mean, they're gonna sign Kadri probably.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's such a Flyers move.
Yeah, of course it is. Especially like if or make this the club. Evgeny Malkin is his whole career, I'm going to talk about someone like Stephen A. Smith will here. If you look at Russell Westbrook's teammates, and he's never won a cup, never won a chip, as he'd say. Kenny Malkin, always behind Sidney Crosby. If he wants to put his legacy up there, he goes to who else but the Philadelphia Flyers. Carries them to a cup, their first cup in I don't even know how long. Since the days of the Broad Street Bullies.
I could see Philadelphia, no, despite Malkin's age, I could see Philadelphia doing a 5-year deal or something. Like just something they would do.
They reunite him with Phil Kessel. I'm just saying. I mean, it's that, or they're going to overpay for Nazem Kadri. Bookmark this now. They're going to. Oh, I haven't looked at, or maybe they're smart and overpay for Tom. You can't overpay for this player. Or they go get Thomas Hertl in the offseason if he's not extended or signed and traded somewhere else. Well, or maybe you make a trade you're the one who makes the trade to try and bring him in.
Well, here's the thing, Adam. You said that they have to be smart. So the Thomas Hertl, we'll rule out Thomas Hertl because we know NHL general managers. We know NHL general managers. Not all of them are smart.
Mm-hmm. You joke 8x8, Daniel. I'd give Hertl 8x8.
Yeah.
I bet he gets 9. Something around there. Tyler Seguin contract, maybe.
If Hertl gets 8 or 9, what does Kadri get?
Same thing. Their market is tied. Well, the benchmark is obviously Zibanejad and Couturier around 8.25, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a little more because it's free agency and that, but the benchmark is going to be $8 million. That I can almost guarantee.
All right. I just like to say a disclaimer. I love Nazem Kadri.
Yeah.
But I just feel like where he is in terms of his career, his age, the production he's had comparative to the rest of his career, I could see this happening that he gets that 8-year deal, but then he goes back to like 50 points.
Yeah, well, so this is his career, right? We'll start at 12-13 season, 44 points in 48 games, 50 points, 39, 45, 61, 55, 44, 36, 52. This year, 52 and 37. Contract year, physical type of play, can get some suspension problems, and he's on the wrong side of 30. Of course he's going to get overpaid, and someone's instantly going to regret it. It might be Jeff Skinner bad. Probably not that bad. It could be like that.
The thing with Nazem Kadri, and I've said it on the podcast before, is, and I've said this saying before, but I very much think it's true with Nazem Kadri. When he was on the Leafs, when he was on the second line, that was Nazem Kadri at his best. When they brought in Tavares and Kadri got moved to the third line as more of like this weird shutdown line that like you didn't really know what it was. That's when you had that weird drop off from Kadri. But look at what he is in Colorado, where he's a second line center where, oh no, you just had to face Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, and Mikko Rantanen. Oh, here's Nazem Kadri. Like you're putting him in the best possible situation to succeed. And I think most players need that. But I think with Nazem Kadri specifically, there's evidence in my eyes that prove that if you put that man in the right situation, you will have him succeed.
If he's smart, he takes a haircut and he stays in Colorado. And obviously we know he's been on a fantastic deal. Deserves a raise, even if he isn't this 100 point, trajectory guy. He's not. It's just who's the guy who's going to think, well, in my top line, he can be this good. Is it Nashville? You never know.
They've tried that a lot.
Yes. Every free agent center they sign.
And there's like 16 million on Duchesne and Johansson.
And then see how much Granlund is.
Kyle Turris.
Oh, Kyle Turris buyout, yes.
Oh, yeah, it's a bad